Cool.
Hi.
Hello. There's the awkward intro again.
Back again.
Back again, yeah. So this week we're going diving into an interesting topic. This is one we spoke about a couple of weeks ago and said, we actually dived. I think we were talking about it, and then you were like, no,
Yeah.
stop. I think this is a full episode.
It is, definitely.
Yeah, and that is the topic of mum guilt, which I have to.
Mum or dad guilt.
I was going to say I have to kind of like pull myself out of this a little bit on the mum guilt, but we'll say mum or dad guilt because then I can actually contribute.
Yeah, because it's like it is both. It's a very, that's the saying, isn't it? Mum guilt.
It is mum guilt because, and I think it's just because because women do way more than men in general. I think let's kind of like, I grew up in a very feminine world being in performing arts. I have no disillusion as to the level in which, like, my wife will go, "You work very hard." I'm like, I see what you deal with every single day. Don't even tell me that I work hard.
No, it's because I think it's because not originally, but way back when or whatever. I don't want to try and be politically correct.
Yeah, so don't worry about this. So I think the thing with this we say is this is not political. Please don't put any comments in the chat going nah, because you'll.
I mean, it's not right. All I mean by mum guilt is like it was men who went out to work and then started to go out to work more, and then came the mum guilt because you're not a mum at home with your children and you feel guilty because you're not doing what you should be doing, which is being a stay-at-home mum.
Yeah.
That's where mum guilt comes from. But now it's mum and dad guilt, so it's a lot more even, which is great.
But in that, so this is an interesting topic because it's a topic that, as somebody who speaks with a lot of business owners, like entrepreneurial one-man band, people who are successful but usually very busy, this comes up all the time. This mum guilt thing with many of my female clients. It's very interesting, and I know me and you've spoken about it, and it was something that was completely new to me. Like I was like, whoa, I didn't know that you felt this way about you and others.
It's like the Money Maker Mothers podcast was really born from the mum guilt, like from the I feel guilty that I'm trying to spin all these plates, and this was way back. This was the Money Maker Mothers podcast was like 2019,
20, I think 20, yeah, 2020.
No, it wasn't because
we didn't work. It was during COVID, and COVID was in 2020.
No.
Yes, COVID happened in
2020.
Well, now you're aging yourself because now people are going to make you older than you are. But like I can tell you right now, COVID. This is not a Karla thing where Karla's going to readjust the when COVID happened. COVID happened in March 2020.
Did I only start working with you in March? Yeah. I mean, during COVID.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't consulting until before COVID.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll let you off. So it was just COVID in September 2020.
Yeah.
And so it was way before I started the business anyway.
Yeah,
and
it was.
I felt loads of guilt because I was obviously still working. And the reason the Money Maker Mothers podcast was started was because I thought there must be more women out there who feel this way, who are like constantly in this battle between I want to be successful and I want to provide for my family and I want to achieve my dreams, but at the same time, I am meant to be at home being a mum. I'm not spending as much time as I was, like everybody else is. And the response I got from that was unbelievable. Like when I did a year's worth of interviews, and when it ended, to now I still get messages, and it finished over a year ago. No,
yeah, it did. It's finished. It's got to be about at least 9 months ago.
Yeah. And that was and I still get messages now saying, "Oh, you're going to do more episodes." I really enjoyed it because I felt like you could relate to it. And
it was just hard to find people on that. There's not many people who are willing to talk about it.
Do you know what it was? If I'm being completely honest, it was that I felt it was repetitive for me.
Yeah, because you're seeing the same people all the time. Yeah.
So like you obviously got different listeners for different episodes, or you might get some, you got some people who were listening every single week. But for me, it was almost like by the end of it, I could see the trend, and that's how I knew that it is a real thing. That yes, you hear about it, but I literally watched it week in, week out. Yes, it might have been different businesses, different families, but the message was exactly the same. Yeah. They wanted to be successful. They had loads of guilt towards being successful, and they powered through it, and they got a balance. But getting a balance and keeping that balance are two very different things, which is why that's what I struggle with all the time is keeping all the plates spinning at the same time, as well as being able to still be able to enjoy the time you're not spinning.
Now, how do you find it? Because that's something that again, this is speaking from a very much, this one's really interesting when I like this topic, because I do think it's something I don't know a lot about, but I've heard it so much and I love psychology. So I'm like very interested in how people think. One of my old clients said to me that she found it very hard with social media. She ran a business and she found it very hard with social media when she would see other mums doing all these wonderful things with their kids, and she was unable. She said she'd find that that was really hard. Is that something that you found at all? I mean, I don't know. With me, I don't really feel that way. But like, she said that, and I remember saying like, "Why do you feel like that?" And she was like, "I can't really put it into words. I just know that like I do see this, and I think, oh, I'm not doing that." And I think does that ever play into my view?
But it's like everything. Like when you think about it logically, no matter what you're doing, 99% of people are looking at what other people are doing and comparing themselves. So if you were saying, say for example, social media, she does a post and she gets 500 likes, I do a post, I get 100 likes. Why is she doing that better than me? Yeah. Why am I not as good as her? Or someone's got a better car than you that you can't afford, and that's what you want. Why can they? Everything that we deal with it socially, 9 times out of 10 is looking at other people and feeling like we're not good enough because we're comparing ourselves to them. And that literally is exactly the same thing with when you're looking at on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be, and you've got mothers who are doing their version of what normal is, and you're watching and thinking, I feel like shit now because look how much better they are at being a mother than I am, because I don't get out the bacon tray and start doing banana bread, and I don't do the paying by numbers because I can't stand the mess. Like everyone's version of normal is different, and I always say this, and I'll always say it to my kids as well, because I think it's so damaging to be told that is normal. What is normal? Every single person's definition of normal is different. My normal is completely different to your normal, and there's no right or wrong between the two. Unless you're doing something really disturbingly wrong, then normal is pretty what you want. And there's no right or wrong. So if one mum's version of normal is to be a stay-at-home mum, to go to all the baby groups, to do all the arts and crafts, and do breastfeed or whatever it might be, that's fine. My version of being a mum is not that. And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad mum or a good mum. It just means that is me as a mother.
It's an interesting thing because we, me and you know each other very, very well. And, so like with our setup here, just listen to you, it's really interesting because Freddie, my wife, she is a full-time stay-at-home mum, and she is the woman with the bacon tray. And it's funny because she says it all the time. She's like, I don't know how people try to juggle that. She always jokes because she's like, it's a full-time job. She said, you can't do that and have a career. And she said it to me. She said, she didn't want a career. And she went, that was the decision. Now grows allotments and stuff. And that's her, really, she's just a farmer. That's her job. It's just an unpaid job, but feeds our family. But she says all the time, we've been here and we've had these conversations lots where, because she's not going back to work, that's another thing of mum guilt. But we've had a lot of hit back on that, where people have gone, one, that she's not gone to the mum, that she's not gone back to work, and two, that she didn't want to be involved in the mum groups. And because of that, it's funny with the mum guilt, she's had mum guilt where she was like, I want to, go and work on the allotment, but everyone's telling me my child should be at the baby groups. And she said, no, I don't want to sit around with a load of mums talking about crap I'm not that interested in. I want to be building a shed, or do you know what I mean? It's an interest. It's very similar to yours, really. It's that scenario of going, I don't want to be in that box. I want to be doing this thing. And
and as long as you're happy in your box, who gives crap which one you're in?
But it's funny because there's a lot of societal pressures, and even if there isn't, there definitely is. But even if there isn't, Freddie's already said, she said, you still feel it, even if it's.
You always feel it. Like I said to you, that's why this episode started. Like I was feeling, obviously, with the kids being off for 6 weeks, I've blinked and the kids are back at school, and I'm like, I said to Keo, how has it been? like 6 weeks. Like, I think I've done, genuinely, hand on heart, I think we've had about 6 to 7 days out in total, like full days. And I was sat feeling guilty about it. And then I was like, I said to you on the other episode, but I also need to remind myself that we've been to Florida for 3 weeks. We've been to Australia for 3 weeks. The boys have football Saturday and Sunday. Alba has dancing and acting on a Saturday. So Saturday and Sunday for us is pretty much a write-off. Once you've done the footy, had dinner, got ready for the next day, you can't really do much anyway. Yeah. And I don't work a Friday. So that would be my day. I do things with them. But you're still full of guilt because whichever way is never enough. So I remember when the pivoting point for me when I decided to do the podcast was that one of my family members made a comment saying, well, why do you work so much? You don't have to work that much. And I sat and I worked it out. And when I was at Howden's employed as a kitchen designer, I was doing 44 hours a week and earning, let's say, 30 grand a year.
Yeah.
But if I work, what would you say I work now? 9.
Yeah, it's tough because you can work, you're seasonal, isn't it? It works really hard. But like,
say on average, I do 12, what are 12 times 4, 30, 40, 48?
Yeah.
Do 48, 50 hours a week, would you say? 50, 60
I say
hours.
You work about 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah, I do.
I work 50, 60 hours a week now.
Yeah.
Because it's a choice and it's not somebody saying, excuse me, why aren't you in at 8 o'clock? Why are you leaving before 6? Because I haven't got an employer telling me that's when I need to be in. There suddenly was an issue with it. And I was like, I'm working 10 hours more. So say it was 10 hours more. I'm working 10 hours more a week, which is 40 hours a month, which is an extra week a month. However, look at the life I'm giving my kids. Look at how happy I am. Look at how more fulfilled we are as a family because I'm fulfilled. Therefore, the children are more fulfilled.
You're setting a great role as well. Like, your children will see that's I think that's really important, is showing your kids that you don't have to go down ABC route. You can go wherever you want.
You can do, but the thing is that society, including close friends and family, will look at you and be like, we don't have to do that. And I'm like, what type of attitude is that? Because someone else isn't telling me to do it, that means I shouldn't be doing it. But if it's for myself and to grow my own business,
it's mad. I had that with the dad guilt thing. I had that. You say about dad. I had it when my son was born, being an entrepreneur, self-employed, have my own business. I completely get that because I was like I remember, like I said when it was, because we have control of our diaries, isn't it? Because you control the time you work. When he was born, I was like, it was weird because I took the week off work, and that was the wrong move. I took the week off work, and Freddie, I took it off because everyone said, and I wasn't going to. I should have trusted my gut really, because I was like, I wasn't going to. I was like, the way I work is I work and live kind of connected. I like to work every single day. I don't like to work 12-hour days. I like to work like 4 or 5 hours a day, but I don't like to ever be disconnected. If you message me at 11 o'clock at night, I'll answer my WhatsApp. I'm very I like to live that way. And so when he was born, all of a sudden this overwhelming guilt came in of like, I need to be around my son all the time. And because I can control my diary, I was like, I'm going to take the week off. And it sucked because I remember Freddie saying, she said, next time we have our next child, she said, you are not taking the week off work because there was a waste of time. And I struggled for maybe 6 or 8 weeks where I was like, oh, I'm not present enough. And she was like, if you don't go to work, you don't make any money. And it's that scenario. She said, if you were employed, your employer would have forced you back and you wouldn't have thought anything of it. But because you're self-employed, and that meant that other people don't work too hard, you need to enjoy it. You need to make sure. And I was like, but if I was going back to work, you would have just gone, okay, you come back to work. It was a very weird scenario. And I've had that as well with being self-employed, where people go, you need to make sure you're around with your kids. I'm like, you do realize I don't start work till 11. I don't start work till 11 o'clock. I'm watching Peter Rabbit for 3 hours before we even come on here. Like, it's literally like people, but they don't get that. People don't get that. They see it as, oh, you work on the weekends.
Yeah.
You're working on the weekends.
You're choosing to work. Oh my God, as if you're choosing to work. Are you not just finishing when you want? Well, yeah, I can finish when I want on the days I want to. But if I ran my life like that, there'd be absolute chaos everywhere. Like, some days I don't work a Thursday. The other week I had a facial, got my nails done and went to a spa. till 9 o'clock because I wanted to and I needed a break on a Thursday. Like, wow. But you don't have to like sort of fill yourself full of guilt to feel as if you have to compensate for the time you're not there, because the time you're not there is being built into building their future and building your family. And there's always going to be right and wrongs, and there's always going to be everyone's opinion on it. And, you know, we could sit here all day and do the pros and cons for either or, but really, it's absolutely nobody else's business barring your own. And as long as you are happy, your children are happy, your partner's happy, nothing else matters. Doesn't matter. So my family are very happy, and yeah, I'm not going to BS about it. Sometimes Alba will be upset when I get in because it's too late and she has to go to bed and she wants to see me and she doesn't understand why do you have to go to work all day. But then when Keo was working away, she'd stand at the door and cry her eyes out and say, when am I going to see daddy again? Nobody would have said to Keo, you're so out of order going to work, so out of order. They'd have said, then the did, believe me, I'm talking about my own family, would say, bless him having to go to work away. And I'm like,
you say he loves it though. He loves the cranes.
He doesn't have to work away. He's choosing and he's really coming back up, because I'd be like, why is it so different? I'm choosing to work. Keo has to go work away. No, Keo could work here locally, could do many things. He wants to do the big cranes because he likes the big cranes. Like, why do we have so much guilt and sorrow for him? Yet I'm being told that I should be at home more. Do you know what I mean? So it's just,
that's also an interesting one when you talk about that, because that's a scenario with working in entrepreneurial life. And I'm sure so many people who are watching this are will be business owners who have exactly the same. It's so interesting when you say about they're all the same kind of things. And it's interesting because there will be people as well with yours and Kira's relationship. I love in that scenario because you both do things you both could do other things and have a much more traditional life, but you both do things that you love. And that, I think, sets a really great example to your kids. I love that. Like, you say, I love it when you do your post going, he's off for a couple of weeks for his love affair with the cranes. And you go, it's hard. He has to go away, but it's that you don't stop each other. And yet there will be people out there going, oh God, I can't believe he goes and leaves her. And that's what will happen. But it's funny because you said, if it's no one else's business other than what goes on. And I think that's the thing with the mum guilt a lot of the time, and the mum guilt, dad guilt, the guilt in general. I think it's working guilt when you have children, is that the guilt a lot of the time is put on because we are trying to hold ourselves to a standard that's just not really
attainable.
You're holding yourself to a rule book that's not even the rules you live your own life by. It's very weird. Very weird.
If I became a stay-at-home mum, my children would hate me. I'm telling you now, would hate me. Because I remember, and I did it, I've done it, like, I didn't work, obviously when I was on maternity, I had 9 months, and then I think I had a year with Alba, and I wasn't, and honestly, I hated it. I hated not having it. I didn't hate being off work with the kids, but I hated knowing that there was nothing coming. You know, like, it was like I was going back to a job that I didn't like, so I didn't want to go back, hence why I then started doing the insurance. But during that period of, like, after Alba was about 6 months, when, like, the newborn stage is over, I was like, should I just do this full time? And I remember Keo was working away and he was like, well, you can if you want, like, we could afford to do it. And I was like, it's not even about the money, it's about my mental health. Like, I know I would go insane doing this every day, day in, day out.
That's what's really funny, because I say this, like, we get hit with that with, like, Freddie being a stay-at-home mum. But the funny thing is, when I actually put it down, we're like, she's not. She is we don't send him to childcare. But really, she had a very similar thing at, like, he was about maybe 6 months, and it was like, she was like, she's like, we got an acre of land, like, literally, we have a truck, we eat all, and she was like, I want to do that. She said, that's what I want to do. And the thing is, that's a job. And that's what she said. She said, I am a working mom. You know, he's down there and she's plowing the fields and stuff. Like, she's full on. And then she comes home and makes food from it all and jams. And that's her thing. But it's not but it's interesting because that was where that scenario, that was a guilt thing. She was like, am I down the allotment too much? I mean, he's over here all the time. But it was funny because it came at a point where she said it was when she was sitting with all the other mums that she was like, I don't want to do this. this is because what you end up, you are, and this is true with, I think, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. And what she said, I was surrounding myself with women who are miserable, moaning about their miserable lives. She said that's what it was. She said, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is what I want.
Exactly. Like, you've got to, as long as it's good for you, that's all that matters.
Exactly.
So as much as you feel mam guilt, and it's never going to go away, but it's like anything, any comparison in life's never going to remove itself unless you're 100% completely and utterly, I don't know what the word would be, to be someone who never looks or compares himself to anyone else, because I just can't.
It's impossible.
It's a load of BS if anyone says they are.
It's catching it is the thing I have to find. I have to catch it when I'm doing it. That's the only thing I do. Like, I have to like.
It's really hard when it's to do with your kids, I think.
Yes,
so like,
yes.
like when you're like, you always look at someone else and think, but then when it's to do with your kids, you think you are literally impacting them and you don't even know how it's going to work out. So like, cause there's no rule book, what am I doing now? That's what I think's right. But is it going to be right in 10 years time? Are they going to turn around and say, Mum, you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday didn't get in at 8 o'clock at night?
Yeah, by the way, they 100% will. And I can tell you that now and I'm going to tell you why. And I think why. It's true. Because I'll tell you what, we're seeing this, and this is something me and my mum were talking about this for this exact reason. Is what happens, my mum and dad, mum was staying at home, dad worked in finance. And it's funny because now in our 30s, but my sister, there are things where you're like, when you did that actually wasn't very good. Like, there's lots of things. But the thing is, we talk about it a lot, me and my sister, with my mum. And my mum laughs, we do laugh about it. But the truth is, and the way we ended up, he said, being a parent, where we sit with is the idea is like, your job is to just try and screw up as little as possible. But the reality is, every day you're doing something that screws up. You could be, by being a stay-at-home mum, you give them all that, all parents, you're giving them all that exposure to love. You're also softening them. They're not very resilient when they go into the workplace. They struggle because they're not used to being told no and to fight for it. You have the other side, and it's really weird. There's no perfect way. And I think that was something that I found when I was talking to my mum. My mum was like, I just tried to do the best I could. And even now there's still problems. And I think that the reality of it is when you realize there isn't actually a right way. Every way is a wrong way. It's just got to be true to you, because and that's what my mum said, she was like, and then also realizing that she said, I got to the point, my mum said it great with this, where she said, you're adults now, not really my problem. And it is like that. And she's like, it's not. And I like that. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's our job to unpack all of that. You've done all the Tony Robbins stuff. It's very similar to that. It's unpack it all, build it back how you want, and then show your kids the life you want from the things you liked and didn't like from your childhood. And that's all you can do. And I think the rest of it, as you say, comparison, you're always seeing part of a picture that's not real. I know how many people, you see so many things online where I'm like, that's not true. That's not right. That person's getting divorced. And it does. And the thing is, we just don't know. And that's the problem with social media, and they're not trying to pretend. That's the other thing I find with social. People aren't pretending that their life is perfect. It's just the bit you see.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just the bit you see, and everything else in between, there's a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
So you just got to sort of take it as what it is the picture that's going on the internet to get positive feedback from. No one's putting the shit stuff online.
No, I love it. You probably have this. Someone said to me on an interview in the US once, literally a couple of weeks ago, said, "Oh, Ash, I don't know how you're such a high performer." And I burst out laughing. And I went, "High performer?" I said, "What makes you think that?" I said, "You doing those content?" I said, "I can barely put my clothes in the right." I was like, I said, "You're just seeing one thing and thinking that I'm like that with the rest of my life." I was like, "I'm not like that at all." Like, we're not. Like, so it's funny. People fill the gaps. So I like, okay, what parting words would you have for people when it comes to this?
Try not to focus on the guilt. Try and focus on whatever it is that your version of normal is building to be. And that's all that matters. As long as you can look at your family and know that they're all happy in the content 90% of the time, because no one's perfect, then whatever you're doing is the right thing.